This is a Eurofile review of Panic on Wall Street, which is a kind of a party game, I suppose, but it's based around a stock exchange, that sort of frantic Wall Street wheeling and dealing, trying to get as much money as you possibly can from your investments. I say a party game because this plays with up to 11 people, between 3 and 11, and that's one of the main reasons that I picked it up. So frequently on podcasts and on video reviews and on forums, people will say, what game can I play with a group of 8 people or 9 people or 10 people or even more, where everybody can play the same game? And the answer that I see time and again is, well, split up into 2 separate groups, which is an absolutely fine, perfectly fine idea. However, sometimes you do just want to play with everybody together, and that's what Panic on Wall Street allows, really. It's not a meaty game by any stretch, it's fairly light, but it's certainly got a bit more substance to it than a lot of party games. It's not as silly as all of that, but it's still a lot of fun and very frantic. The other great thing about it is I love stocks and shares games. You know, I'm a big fan of speculation and Mercurius and Harbend Gut and Black Friday. So I've got a bit of a taste for these sort of games. Panic on Wall Street is nothing like as meaty as those other games, nothing like the weight of those games. But you're still getting that same feel of investing and speculating and trying to get things cheap and then watching them grow. So let's have a little look at how it all works. I don't often do sort of unboxing lookings at the components, that sort of thing, but I think it's worth doing in this case. So we've got a nice little rule sheet here. We've got the player board, which has the different stocks on it. So that's the central board. We've got a ton of nice thick tokens in different colours, which are investment tokens, in all different player colours along here. A whole load of these thick card companies with amusing images on them. This one being a box to cure the sound of snoring, a padded box to put your partner's head in, you know, they've all got amusing things. This one, a sausage in a tube, and so on. These are the companies you're going to be investing in throughout the game. We've got some custom dice here for the various different stocks. Absolutely beautiful paper money. I mean, I don't normally like paper money, but this is really quality stuff. Each type having a different sort of image on it. I'm coming round to paper money. I've played a lot with poker chips in the past, but just the convenience of being able to just grab it out of the box and stick it on the table. There's something quite nice about that. We've got a load of these dry erase markers, and they've got this little sort of sponge on the end for cleaning your pen marks off, which I think is a nice touch. Absolutely ridiculously unnecessarily sort of fancy egg timer. You know, there's no reason it needs to be like this as opposed to a little plastic one, but really appreciate it. And then a few little tokens here. So I'll lay it all out and I'll show you how the game works. There are 4 different coloured companies that people can invest in during this game. They are the red companies, the yellow companies, green and blue. Red is high risk. It goes from 30 to 40 to 50, 60, 70, but also goes down to -20. Yellow is slightly more stable, 30, 40, 40, 60, 60. Green, a little bit more low risk. And then by the time you get down to blue, it's very low risk, but very low reward. So that's not going to fluctuate very much in value. So players are deciding where they want to invest. Half the players are investors, half the players are company owners. So the company owners have boards like this in front of them at the beginning of the game to show the companies that they own. And there's this little space down here to write the value of that company on as it's agreed. So at the end of the game, we're going to have 2 winners. We're going to have a winner who is an investor. So the investors all have these tokens, so you'll know you're an investor if you've got these tokens in front of you. So there'll be an investor who wins, and there'll also be a company owner who also wins. And those are the investor who's got the most money at the end of the game, and the company owner who has the most money at the end of the game. The game goes through 5 turns, as indicated on here. And in each turn, there's going to be a lot of deals made between the investors and the company owners, and fluctuation in this market here. So, how do the deals work? Well, everyone starts with a certain amount of money, and then there's a bunch of these boards laid out in front of the company owners. So if I was a company owner, I might have 3 boards like this. The investors then have this period, the period which is I think it's 2 minutes, but I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, it's a 2-minute timer. So we flip the 2-minute timer over, and then everybody just has to make deals, and they can do it as much as they like. They just run around the table making a lot of noise trying to make deals, and the company owners try and sort of encourage them to make a deal on their card. So the deals will be, I'll give you 20 to let me invest in your yellow. So you write down 20 on that board, and then someone else might say, well, hang on a minute, I'll give you 30. And so they bump you off that board. And so we rub this out, and then we say 30. No money's changing hands at this point. The timer is still running down. Then somebody else says, I'm going to give you 5 for this red. And so I say, actually, no, I don't want to take 5. 5's not enough. And so we argue it up, and now I'm up to 15. And I say, great, I'll have 15. And then somebody else says, no, I want that one. I'll give you 30. And I say, well, okay, 30. But they say, but I want it closed. And so I say, well, all right, 30 closed. What that means is now nobody can bump me off that. Now I'm on 30 and it's staying on 30. Time's still running out. No money's changing hands. Someone else then comes along and they say down here, I'm going to give you 5 for that. And I think, well, 5's not enough. But then they're going to go somewhere else and give someone else 5. And so I say, all right, then we'll give you 5. And they're on here, and then someone else bumps it off and says, well, no, I want that one, and I'm going to give you 10. And so we rub it out and we go up to 10. And it's all done at this speed, except if you can imagine there's 11 people around the table, the noise level is immense. Time's still running out. Noise level is absolutely immense. People are shouting. They're trying to encourage you. They're trying to do one over on their neighbours, and tempers rage. It's fantastically panicky, as the title says, Panic on Wall Street. It's hectic, and it's very, very exciting. So once the timer has run out, which it nearly has now, what happens then? Well, we come back to this board now, and what we do is we roll these dice. The red dice goes from -7 to +7, so the red share can go from -20 to 70 in a single roll of that dice. The yellow dice is -3 to +3. The green dice +2 to -2, and then +1 to -1 on the blue dice. So we roll these dice and we see what happens. Well, here we are. Red has gone down by 2 spaces. It's now down to -10. Yellow has gone up to 40. Blue is down to 20, and green is on +2, so that's up to 40. So these are the values of what we've invested in. So now this guy has invested in yellow. These orange cards actually represent yellow. So he's paid 30 for this investment. So he's now going to pay the company owner 30, but he's going to gain an income of 40 because that's the current value of yellow. So he's made a $10 profit. Over here, this person's invested 30 in red. So they're going to have to pay the company owner 30, but they're also going to have to pay 10 to the bank because red is now worth -10. So that is a major loss for that player. The green, but then he went for the high risk, didn't have to go for high risk. Green paid 10 down here, this player did rather, and they're getting 40 back. So that's a really nice deal. So they've got a $30 profit there, and the green owner gets 10 money. The company owners then have to pay 10 money for each company that they own. So this company owner has 3 companies, so he'll pay $30. And then we go into a round where more of these companies are dealt out, and these are auctioned off to the company owners. Some of them are 2 times. What that means is that when people invest in them, they don't just get the money that's on the board here, they get twice that money. So if somebody invested in this blue tooth rubber thing, then if they invested, regardless of what they paid for it, they're going to get 40 back for having invested in that company. And so on. And we do this 5 times, and then at the end of the game, as I say, the company owner with the most money is one of the winners, and the investor with the most money is the other winner. Panic on Wall Street is a really interesting, unique experience. You don't get many board games like this. You don't get many that will play with up to 11 people. And this scales fairly well. I probably wouldn't play it with 3 or 4 or even 5 players. But once we get to that sort of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players, then it becomes a really viable option. And I find myself at that player count fairly frequently. And those are the times where I think it's a shame to always split into 2 separate groups when we could play something together. The component quality in Panic on Wall Street is fantastic, so that's a real positive, along with the player count being the other big positive. Now, downsides to it, I don't know if this is a downside, but it's very, very loud. You couldn't, you wouldn't want to play this in a cafe. You know, you wouldn't want to play it even in a bar. There's a lot of shouting going on. So it's really reserved for gaming events or playing at home. And even at home, I must admit, I tend to worry about the neighbours. It gets so loud. There's so much shouting going on. But that's not really a downside. That's actually quite exciting in a board game. You don't get many board games that are that lively. A downside with it is that, in my experience so far, that players tend to over-invest on their first game. So if you're playing with a bunch of new players, which I frequently am when I play this game, despite warning them right at the start, don't overinvest, play it cool, you know, they all go all in on that first round, and I frequently see players going bankrupt and shut out of the game, which is awful for them because they're eliminated from the game essentially, but it's also no good for the rest of the game because it unbalances it, because suddenly we've got too few investors, and so the company owners have got a load of companies and there's not that many people to invest in them. The game still functions, but I have had it stall where, you know, a couple of 2 or 3 people have gone bankrupt and the whole thing falls apart. Now, I know that's an oddity, I know that won't happen in every game, and certainly if you're playing frequently with the same players, that's not going to be a problem. But I'm not sure this is the sort of game that you're going to play frequently with the same players. This is the sort of game you're going to bring out at a big gaming event with loads of people, maybe at a sort of gaming sort of party at your house or something like that. It's not something you're going to play week after week with the same players and develop strategies and that sort of thing. So I think that is a problem with the game. That said, if you can get past that, and I really can, there's nothing much not to love with this game. It's some people seem a little unhappy with this idea of writing on these cards, and I must admit it does sit a little uneasily with me, but I can go with it. And so, you know, they're dry erase. They do come off. Some of them, they you know, even if you really wipe them well and you try and keep them all clean, you do end up with a slight smudge on there afterwards. They don't stay pristine, which is a sort of shame. There's no way to sleeve these. I've tried. You can't get sleeves that will fit these. They're thick cards. They are about the right size for Dixit sort of sleeves, but you know, really, if you're buying this game, I think you're going to have to go with the fact you're going to have to write on these, unless you want to go with post-it notes and all that stuff, which in the chaos of the game, I think will just get a little bit too fiddly. I think that's about all I've got to say about Panic on Wall Street. It's not going to give you the sort of stock market investment thing of those other games that I showed you, Haben Gut and Black Friday. Or, you know, we're not in that territory here. We're in something very light, a lot of randomness, but at least you can mitigate. You know, you don't have to go for that high risk red strategy. You can play the greens and the blues that are lower risk and lower reward. So it's slightly different territory to the other stock market games, but that's nice because I've got a lot of stock market games and it's good to have a change of pace. So it's well worth picking up. Panic on Wall Street.